What is up? Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Feel pretty nicey on this Thursday morning.
Feeling pretty nicey here.
Because we're going to be talking about
Thursday.
John Gruden's amazing TikTok here in a little bit. We're going to be talking about some Hall of Famers potentially as the NFL released their list of 167 potential Hall of Famers. And we're going to be breaking down every single week 3 matchup in the NFL. Let's get to those Hall of Famers though. First, right off the top here.
We're going to argue probably, but you know, some guys will get their credit here
because there's only 5 that get in every year.
Yep.
And the NFL released their list of 167. Some first-year guys that are on the ballot. We have Eli Manning coming up in his first year. You have guys like Marshall Yanda, the multi-time Pro Bowl guard for the
Baltimore Ravens.
You have John Kuhn on the ballot, which I don't think John Kuhn's getting in. But you have Terrell Suggs getting his first time on the ballot. So a lot of names, Luke Kuechly as well.
But if you're a Packer fan, John Kuhn's a legend. He cut Julius Peppers and allowed Aaron Rodgers to sling that thing down the left sideline to Randall Cobb.
But there's a difference between legends and Hall of Famers.
Gold jacket.
I just want to like say my criterion for what I think Hall of Famers. It's either you burn hot. I want the guys who are no doubt the best at their position for a stretch of time. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Burn at a really hot level. Or you are Pro Bowl, but for like 13 years.
Yep.
You know, if you're just an 8-year Pro Bowl kind of guy, but never considered the best of your position, which I think a guy like Eli Manning falls into. Like, no one ever said Eli was the best of his position. Yeah, he won 2 rings, but he was never the best of his position. But if you are a guy who was in that mix, but for a long, long time, that gets you consideration as well. But the NFL is tough. We went through this list and we said, like,
we got a good blend on here of guys that burned hot for a short amount of time, were the best in their position. We got a good group of guys that were either great at the beginning, great at the end, maybe a lull in the middle, but we've got a good blend here. And obviously there's room for debate, but these are our 5. We texted each other on the way in this morning about how hard this was. What you got, Mike?
So mine, I have Marshall Yanda, the Ravens guard.
And this is not ranked. This is not 1 through 5. This is just any 5 names that happens to have numbers next to them.
So from my days of grading at PFF, when I graded from 2013 to about 2018, 2019, there were 2 guards over that time span that I'm like undoubtedly the best in the NFL. It's Marshall Yanda. It was Zach Martin. Yanda, just the consistency year on year. He also started his career at tackle. People don't remember that, and he was a damn good tackle.
Played some towards the end of tackle and was a Pro Bowl tackle. At the end was
forced to via injury. So a guy that really just anywhere you would have lined him up would have been awesome. Luke Kuechly, from snap 1 to the last snap of his career, was one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Defensive player of the year. Yeah, 8 years only.
8 years, 8 All-Pros, 2013 Defensive Player of the Year, and then he walked away on his own accord.
Jamal Charles, I have him on this list as well, the Chiefs running back. Highest yards per carry in NFL history for a running back.
5.5 yards per carry?
5.4. Had a year
kidding me?
back in 2010 where he averaged 6.4 yards per carry and had nearly 1,500 rushing yards that season.
Over 8 yards of reception, too, for my guy, Jamal Charles.
He was a special dual threat runner that just didn't have the volume others did, but on an efficiency basis, no one came close to him. Steve Smith Sr., maybe controversial, over guys like Torrey Holt, who's on this list. Reggie Wayne, who's a top 10 all-time receiving yards guy, but Steve Smith was not in the volume passing offense as those guys were. He did not have the benefit of that. He was a guy, though, that at the catch point, I've never seen a better, smaller wide receiver. He was only 5'9" at the catch point than Steve Smith Sr., was just an all-around dude. And if he played in an offense, like a more modern offense with more modern passing game, he would have gone absolutely off. And then how can you forget Adam Vinatieri? Sometimes I think we overrate postseason success a little bit, especially when
but it matters.
Game. But when you do what Adam Vinatieri did, and you have the longevity that he did, yeah, Adam Vinatieri, I'm putting him in the Hall of Fame.
I remember riding on the bus with him in 2013 as a rookie Pro Bowler, and I was just like wondering who this 50-year-old equipment guy that was on the bus was. And Pat McAfee made it clear to me that was the GOAT. That's Adam Vinatieri. So shout out to Vinatieri. Guy was solid too physically. Took care of himself. You can always see that these kickers hang on for a lot longer when they lift weights. They're badasses in their own right. And he is one.
He is the all-time leading scorer in the NFL. He is the LeBron James of the NFL.
Wow. He is the Asia Wilson.
There you go.
Of the NFL. Yeah. Okay, so that's your list. I'm gonna go off the top here. This is a tough list to make. But for a guy like London Fletcher, okay, and I got to work with London Fletcher at that other pregame show for CBS. And he's an underappreciated guy in his time because of the guys that he had to play with in the NFL. I mean, a guy like Ray Lewis was the most well-known in his position during his time. But you look at London Fletcher, 16 seasons in the National Football League, never missed a game, 256 games. Guy had 2,039 tackles, 127 tackles per season for 16 years. That's unbelievable. 19 forced fumbles, 23 interceptions, 39 sacks. He won a Super Bowl with St. Louis. He was part of that very close game with, Kevin Carter and all those guys. Greatest show on turf on the offensive side of the ball. But it was that defense that made the big stop at the end. So London Fletcher is on my list. Second, Terrell Suggs. This is a guy that started his season. I believe he was the defensive rookie of the year when he came out of Ball So Hard University. There was like a 10-year lull where he didn't have those type of accolades. And then he was the defensive player of the year. So I think about a guy who was really hot at the beginning, finished really hot, played for a long time, was a staple on a tremendous defense. Terrell Suggs, matchup nightmare. Number 3, Antonio Gates. And Antonio Gates, it kind of goes without saying, 16 years with the Chargers, such a unicorn in terms of longevity with one team. He led all tight ends with 116 touchdown receptions. That puts him number 7 all time, regardless of position. He was a basketball player that played football. Talk about a matchup nightmare. Antonio Gates was just that. Torrey Holt, I think it was 8 years in a row that he went for over 1,000 yards. He played in a time where that offense was the class of the league. Mm-hmm. They had a nickname, right? Greatest show on turf. They did a lot of great things in St. Louis, none of which would be true without Torrey Holt, Hall of Famer. And then obviously I got Luke Kuechly in there, and we overlap on the Luke Kuechly selection. A couple other guys I wanted to put on there, Marshall Yonda, but you had him in there, a GOAT. I would get beat up by Marshall if I didn't have him on there. Tough to argue with these names. But Olin Kreutz, center, Chicago Bears, doesn't have the accolades in terms of all pros, but a guy that was a staple on a really, really dominant team for a long time. Steve Smith Sr., as you said. And then a guy that maybe didn't make a lot of lists, Reuben Brown, okay? I think it was eight straight AFC Pro Bowls for Reuben Brown when he was in Buffalo. He finished in Chicago, where he probably got more recognition. He was a dominant ass kicker at the line of scrimmage. Reuben Brown is going to make my honorable mention list. So, right, so I like this.
Yeah, some guys I also want to give honorable mention to. Earl Thomas, the Seahawks safety.
Yep.
Crucial to the Legion of Boom and what they did. Cam Chancellor on the ballot, too. I'm not sure I'd put him in the Hall of Fame, though. Jared Allen, for all the years, all the sacks, he was at the top of his game. That guy was, as a Noah's Patch fan, tough to block. And then I think Steven Jackson deserves consideration, man.
My God.
That guy ran his head into a brick wall for like 8 straight years for this not Los Angeles Rams, St. Louis Rams.
The Ed Jones Dome.
With some bad teams. And that guy was an animal that if he was on like a better team, he would have been in the Hall of Fame already, because he was just a load to bring down in those years.
It was like the Steven Jackson Dome. When you played those Rams, you knew that they didn't have a good quarterback, that the offensive line wasn't always great. But this guy, Steven Jackson, you'd hand him the ball 20-plus times a game, and he was a friggin' tornado in the middle of the field. So athletic, so much bigger than you would imagine. It was like watching the Predator run the football. That's what it was like.
It was.
The dreads were hanging out. The muscles were popping out of the jersey, and the guy was just mowing down anybody in his path. Steven Jackson, good pick there.
Who do we think actually gets in? I think for sure Kuechly's getting in. I think Vinatieri gets in.
Yep.
When you're the all-time leading scorer, first year on the ballot for him. I think those two I'd feel confident getting in. I think Antonio Gates, I would guess, gets in. Just
because he didn't get in last year.
Yeah, when you have put up the numbers he did at tight ends, basically like the all-time leader and everything, I think he's getting in. I think those three. Then after that, Suggs, I bet.
Suggs could get in for sure. That's
Suggs
why,
gets in.
He's on our list, but as you know, people have opinions, and there's a lot of names that came out to be eligible for this.
So those are the ones I'd probably feel confident in. The rest after that,
tweet at us with the ones that you think we missed out on, or if there's any honorable mentions you feel like should be on the cusp of this top 5 list, let us know. Okay, this is at Mike_Renner.
Correct.
And I am at Kyle Long, and the L in Kyle is a 1. Okay, hit us up.
Easy to remember. All right, the next thing we want to get to in the first off the ball segment, John Gruden. I stumbled upon his TikTok earlier this week.
You like football, man?
And it's electric. We got a clip here. You guys got to see it.
I love running backs. I've always loved running backs. That's why week 1 made me feel so nicey. I mean, I'm watching Joe Mixon carry the ball 30 times for 159 yards and a touchdown. Got me feeling nicey.
The best part of that, him mistiming. He wants to do the fist pump. Obviously, the rhythm not quite there with John Gruden. But anytime like a former coach or like a guy, pure football guy, tries to get into the social media game, and like his brother's on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen Jay Gruden. He's got himself.
Oh, I'm sure he's got a really good
on Twitter.
With RG3, I've seen it.
Yeah, he's not afraid of controversy. Anytime a former coach gets active, I'm there for it. I love it. Rick Spielman, I remember when he got on TikTok, he was doing like the TikTok dances to try to go viral.
Rick Spielman had a TikTok?
Rick Spielman was doing
I got to do some research there.
But they just they don't know. It's like watching, a deer walk for the first time. It just,
when you get a guy like John Gruden, who is so polarizing, obviously you and me, we're football guys. We love John Gruden. But then there's the other side of the coin where he said some things that weren't very tasteful in his past. And right now what we're watching is a guy trying to reinvent himself. I'm really wondering who in his corner is the one that was like, you need to get on TikTok. People would really enjoy this. Is it Deuce Gruden?
Well, here's the thing. He's pretty much untouchable from a media perspective after all that went down in the Las Vegas Raiders and the emails that leaked. So he's probably like, I would like to make some money.
Yeah, that's just, he's making money, but also he sees this as an opportunity. He's from the Fired
Football Coaches
Association of America, which is a genius acronym. And I think it's probably giving him some momentum here because now you get him talking football. People see, why is this guy not in an NFL room? We complain about a lot of these coaches in the NFL. John Gruden seems like a guy who coach a football team. We thought it was funny.
I mean, and actually I watched some of his YouTube videos and he does actually put out good content. That video, objectively not good content. He was just naming stats, but he goes and does X's and O's breakdown on his
stats.
YouTube.
Got me feeling nice.
So if you're interested in that sort of thing, which I am, I would highly recommend. So, all right, on to the games this week. This Sunday, week 3 of the NFL on CBS is highlighted by a matchup between two undefeated teams when head coach Jim Harbaugh leads his Chargers into Pittsburgh for a meeting with Mike Tomlin's Steelers. Others will see the Vikings taking on the Texans. Now that's a CBS Sports Sunday. We'll get you set for all the games at noon Eastern with the NFL Today, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. Let's get to preview the games right after this.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount+. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
All right, quick hit from our locks from a week ago, where you fared a little bit better this week. We both went 2-1.
Micah Parsons, come on, man.
I know, Micah Parsons, your sack overs have been disastrous, but the Chargers cover 5.5. The Jets cover 3.5, even though that one looked in doubt for a little bit there. My Chicago, it wasn't at GB. It was at Houston, under hit. The Jameson Williams over hit on like the second pass play of the game. That's always nice to have.
He's a lightning rod.
But my Colts pick didn't hit, and I am not upset about it whatsoever. That was my emotional hedge, and I emotionally feel great right now.
That's a good move by you. I mean, you can see that we obviously had some things in mind that didn't come to fruition. I thought the Cowboys were going to dominate this front-running Saints team, but they didn't, and congrats to them. I actually, on my Sunday show, I said 2.5 sacks, forced fumble, and a win for Micah Parsons and the Cowboys.
It's 2.5.
I laid an egg. So did they.
All right, Thursday Night Football. Pats travel to New York to face the Jets tonight. My tail of the tape as we see it. Head coach, I can't give this one to anyone. Obviously, we're 2 games in.
And we like Coach Mayo.
Of Gerard Mayo. And a few years into the tenure of Robert Saleh, and I'm not giving anyone the edge here, but from a personnel perspective, I have the Jets getting every single edge except for secondary, which Jets obviously no slouch of a secondary themselves, but
pretty strong in New England.
Especially the offensive line, because the Pats may have a Rams situation on their hands here. Vidarian Lowe, left tackle, out for this one. Mike Onwenu, right tackle, questionable in this one. Center, David Andrews with a hip, questionable in this one. Sidney Sowell, left guard, with an ankle, out in this one. So your whole left side's out. Only one who's not on the injury report is Layden Robinson, your right guard, who's been excellent as a rookie in the run game. But they were already allowing the 3rd highest pressure rate in the NFL. And everyone talked about the O-line issues, and it hasn't been a factor in the running game. They've been moving people in the running game, but still Brissett's been under pressure, the 3rd most of any quarterback in the NFL, 44.3%. And while they face a Jets defense that maybe they're not great in the running game, but they can get after passers. So, Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about the Pats scoring points in this one. I'll just say it.
Yeah, depending on how the Jets come out offensively, what their game plan is. Do they want to run the football? Are they going to allow Aaron to stay ahead of schedule with some of this quick game stuff? Either way, you and I both know the Patriots are probably going to be playing from behind at least before halftime, which leads me to believe they're going to have to drop back and pass. Jacoby Brissett does a really good job of taking care of the football. We've known that about him, which is probably why he was put in there as a starter with the group that they had. But now the group gets even worse at the offensive line. So the pressure is going to be in Jacoby's face all day. Can he maintain the security of the football? If not, it's looking like it's going to be all Jets in this one. And also, if I'm the Jets, this is an opportunity to pick on a group that's been a little downtrodden in terms of injury. Jets are looking to prove themselves. Look for a breakout game for this team.
Yeah, I think the Jets win. I think 6.5 is too much for me, though. The number I like is 38.5. I like the under. I don't see the Pats scoring more than like 10 or so points in this one.
Yeah, I see the clock running throughout.
And their game plan is definitely going to be to run the rock. So obviously two of the better defenses in the NFL, at least on paper. Pats have definitely been one on the football field of late. So when that's the case, I like the under.
I want to see it's got to be absolute. It's not a must win for this Jets team. It's a must dominate. It's a division game and a game that you should win. You've got the edge at quarterback. Your defense is obviously the group that everybody has been oohing and eyeing about for the last few years. Go prove it. Go prove to these guys who you are as the Jets. This is a must win, must dominate.
Pats, though, they've won 15 of the last 16 against the Jets. Kind of been their daddy, shall we say. On to the Giants, Browns.
That's a ridiculous number.
That is. That's almost Bears-Packers-esque, right?
Come on.
Oh, I had to do it. All right, the 1 p.m. games. Giants,
Keep
Browns.
the graphic up. I'm going to whoop his ass right now.
We have head coach. I'm tilting towards Kevin Stefanski here. He's won a couple head coach of the year awards. Not to brag. Quarterback. No one gets the tick mark here, which is tough to do when you're facing Daniel Jones. But at this point, we'll get to some stats on Deshaun Watson in a second. I can't give him the tick mark. Receivers, though, got to give this one to the Browns, even if Amari Cooper can't hold on to a football right now. Backfield, going Motor Singletary and the Giants. That's the only one they get, though. After that, O-line, D-line, linebackers, secondary, all tick the Browns' way. That's why they are 6.5-point favorites in this one. Over under 38.5. Not expecting a lot of points. But the stat I found this week that is probably the biggest indictment of Deshaun Watson, the third down conversion rate for the Browns this season, only the Panthers are worse.
Third down. There's a reason they call these money downs in the National Football League. There's a reason the guys like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, they're all paid so much is because of the fact that they can get the ball out on third down, find the receivers. And a lot of it comes down to protection. And I think that Cleveland obviously has a lot of guys on the injury report, including Conklin, DeJuan Jones. And then I look at Myles Garrett on the injury report as well with a foot. Did not participate on Wednesday. Interesting to see how that thing ramps up this week.
Yeah. Well, Conklin practiced yesterday for the first time. So hopefully he's back, even though DeJuan Jones, I thought, was actually playing fairly well in his stead. But I'm not sure it really matters. The Giants just aren't going to score points. I mean, they couldn't score points against the Washington Commanders. So when that's the case, and I think the Commanders have probably a bottom 5 to 10 defense in the NFL, I don't think I'm breaking ground there to say that. When that's the case, you're not scoring against the Browns team. You're just flat out not. They're too good, even if Myles Garrett isn't healthy, which I think he still plays.
Bro, the injury report is just insane for the Browns.
It's not good for the Browns.
2 pages long.
It is not good for the Browns. And that's going to make me avoid them probably at 6.5. It's probably a little too much for me. But if you like the Browns in this one, I wouldn't hate it just because the Giants are going to struggle.
It's going to be a 1-score game. It's going to come down to an interception for the Giants. The Giants are going to throw an interception. I got the Browns winning this thing, but I think that the Giants do cover.
Okay. All right. There you have it. All right. On to the Bears. Traveling to Indianapolis to face the Colts, who can't stop a nosebleed on the ground. So if the Bears can get something going, it better be this week, and it better be with their running game, because the Colts have the worst run defense in the NFL. They actually have the worst run defense in both week 1 and both week 2. So it's bad.
Bodes well for a friggin' Bears team that can't block a runny nose with a tissue.
DeForest Buckner goes on IR this week. That's not going to help your run defensive woes. Tail of the tape, though, as you see there on your screen, head coach, quarterback, receivers, backfield, and offensive line. So the whole offense, I'm giving it to the Indianapolis Colts at this point. It's just with Rome Odunze banged up, with what I've seen from these Bears receivers so far, Colts are getting open at a higher clip, flat out are. And then obviously Anthony Richardson versus Caleb Williams. That one's an easy nod. Defense side of the ball, though, Bears get all the tick marks. So it truly is an offense versus a defense in this one. Colts defense looks like a sieve. Bears defense looks like a house, kind of a movable rock versus No, 2 movable rocks.
There you go.
There you go. And so I think the Bears get this. I think the Bears get it back on track.
It's huge.
I think they do.
Huge opportunity for this offensive line to answer all the doubters, guys like me who have said you guys aren't coached the right way. You don't seem to have intent at the point of attack. Well, look, you got this Colts team. They're pretty much inviting you to run the football on them. They're pretty much asking you, can you run the football on us? Because everybody else can. So for the Bears, tremendous opportunity up front to take control of the game plan, dictate the terms of engagement. That's running the football. And also, what does that do? It's going to help your young quarterback. Caleb Williams won't have to drop back 40 times and be under duress 90% of those dropbacks. I look for them to hand the football off, try to win the game in that regard. And obviously, you said no Defoe. It's going to be a different looking front seven for this Colts group. Let's get after these guys a little bit. And for Anthony Richardson, the questions that need to be answered: can you hit the open ones? Can you hit the intermediate throws? We've seen the down the field throws. We've seen the throws at or around the line of scrimmage. What we want to see is those crossing routes, the mesh concepts. Can you hit your guys play side? Can you hit them in the hands? Keep your runners at full speed before and after they catch the football. That's where dangerous things happen in the National Football League. Need to see that from Anthony Richardson.
Yes, we do. And until we do, again, I'm not betting the Colts this one, but I am betting the under 43.5. Not to tease, but
I'm going the Bears.
It is going to be one of my locks of the week. All right, Texans traveling to Minnesota to face the Vikings. Vikings, another home dog. Back-to-back weeks, they're home dogs. When are people going to learn not to doubt Brian Flores? 2.5-point dogs. The over-under is 45.5 in this one. Some injuries. Joe Mixon, they're holding out hope for him to play. Probably unlikely given what him after the hip drop that we discussed in yesterday's show. Jordan Addison still not practicing, the Vikings' second wide receiver, so don't expect him to play. Tail of the tape, head coach. I love them both, man. I can't give the nod anywhere in this one. Quarterback, pretty easily giving the nod to the Texans. Receivers, Jordan Addison's out. I'm giving the nod to the Texans as well. Backfield, with no Joe Mixon, this one's an easy one. Go give me Aaron Jones and the Minnesota Vikings, even though Aaron Jones also on the injury report this week. O-line, D-line, give me the Texans in both of those, but then linebacker secondary, give me the Vikings in both of those. Even though this one's a tough one, because I think the Texans secondary is much improved, but those Vikings, just the safeties with how they've played this year, whether it's Josh Metellus, whether it's Harrison Smith, whether it's Cam Bynum, and then the ageless Stephon Gilmore. I like that Viking secondary, and you can't argue with their results so far. Some notes in this one. These teams are the 2 top leading sack getters in the NFL. Wow. Vikings have 11. Texans have 9. And then Kaimi Fairbairn. Guys hit 6 field goals from 50-plus already. NFL kickers this year, actually, 35 of 37 on 50-plus. Not named Justin Tucker, who's 0 for 2.
Kaimi, that's a great name.
So this one, again, I like the Vikings at home. Tough home field, tough defensive coordinator Brian Flores. I'm buying the Vikings, obviously. I've said that. I think this team, I said I like them against the 49ers last week. Not necessarily to win, but I like them because it was 6.5-point dogs. 2.5-point dogs, give me them. And I also, I'm calling out a lot of unders, but I like the under in this one too, 45.5. I just think the Vikings and Brian Flores in this defense and what they have, especially at those second level with those linebackers that fly all over the field, that just create chaos.
Every year, you know that there's going to be a group defensively, one unit coached by a really good coach, and you can set your watch to them, and you can say, I know what I'm going to get out of this unit. It's kind of like last year when we watched the Jets team with no quarterback. They were behind the 8 ball offensively. The defense knew they had to show up. Now, for the Minnesota Vikings, it's not quite the same situation because you've got some skill on the offensive side of the football. Obviously, Jefferson dinged up with a quad, and you've got Sam Darnold out there, and people are still asking questions about him. But when I think about this Texans team and what they showed me last week was, or last game was, they're not perfect. They're not perfect. The Chicago Bears took them down to the wire, and there was a few really poor decisions made by the Chicago offense that led to extra possessions for the Texans. When I think about this Vikings group, they're not going to have as sloppy a football as the Bears played the other day. They're going to protect their passer even better. The Houston Texans will have less opportunities to get to the quarterback. God, I really like this Vikings team, and I think I'm really in on them being at home. Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to go with the under as well on this one.
We just jinxed this with Stephon Diggs, revenge game. Daniel Hunter, revenge game. Jonathan Grenard, though, revenge game as well on the other side of the ball, playing for the Vikings. So a lot of storylines there. Yeah, I think we both like the Vikings.
Which is crazy to say.
It is crazy to say. Eagles traveling to New Orleans to face the Saints. Saints, 2.5-point favorites. Who would have predicted that one prior to the season? Over and under on this one, 49.5 points. A.J. Brown, obviously we saw him miss last week. He said he's expecting to miss a couple weeks. So no sure thing just yet, but don't expect him out there. If that's the case, tail of the tape, I got to give the receivers to the Saints. If no A.J. Brown out there, I give the head coach to the Saints at this point with what I've seen. And I say head coach, I mean like coaching staff.
Yeah.
When I say head coach.
You mean Clint Kubiak.
And that's what I'm really meaning. I mean, like Dennis Allen's always been a good DC. I had nothing, not trying to take away from that, but Clint Kubiak is what gives them the edge here. Quarterback, give me Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, even though we got a good Jalen Hurts stat
coming up for you. Carr, you hater.
In a second. Backfield, Alvin Kamara versus Saquon. I called it a wash. I'm not picking between those two.
Does Alvin catch the 3rd and 3?
Alvin catches the 3rd and 3. So that because of that, it's a wash. Offensive line, defensive line, this is where the Eagles still should control this game. If their D-line, though, steps their shit up and run defense. Truthfully.
Yeah, that's the question mark, right? I mean, I know you got 2 more check marks to go through.
Linebackers, secondary, give me the Saints. This one, I'm not breaking too much ground here, especially with those Saints linebackers. So that's where I'm looking. And
who are the Eagles? Who are the Eagles on defense?
That's what we still need to find out.
You have an opportunity to dictate who you are against this Saints team, because make no mistake about it, they're going to try to run the football right at your hogs up the middle. They're going to be trying to dominate the line of scrimmage. That's been the plan of attack for the Saints team the first 2 weeks, and it's made life really easy and really, really fruitful for Derek Carr and his receiver room. I think the big question is, can Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis show up and be ass kickers first snap through the final snap of this football game? And it'll tell me a lot about the New Orleans Saints team. If the Eagles elect to receive first and they go down and score a touchdown, not a field goal, they go down and score a touchdown, it'll dictate the terms of engagement. We'll then see the Saints probably try to play from behind a little bit, especially if it gets to 2 possessions. That will tell me a lot about the Saints, them playing from behind, them being forced to drop back and protect Derek Carr. Because at the beginning of the season, I talked about the issues being the offensive tackle on the right side. Obviously, we like Fuaga on the left side, but they're better run blockers than pass blockers. They love to play with a lead, and they can dictate the terms of engagement there.
Philadelphia's run defense, 157.5 yards per game through 2 weeks.
Yikes.
Yeesh. And you're facing an absolute house in the Saints running game from what we've seen. A couple other notes. This one, Jalen Hurts. He now has 24 turnovers since the start of last year. That's the most of any quarterback in the NFL.
More than Josh Allen, huh?
More than Josh Allen. And that's especially concerning given the offensive line he has. Usually you think like turnovers are a pressure stat a lot of times, whether it's fumbles from like blindside
or lack of separation, or whether it's on the second level,
whether
they don't have that.
Panicky throws, and it's like there's really no reason for Jalen Hurts to be leading the NFL in turnovers. And it's not like the Saints defense is an easy one to not give the ball to. They fly around.
And it's in New Orleans. I mean, we haven't even said that yet. It's in New Orleans, okay? If you guys have ever been to a game in New Orleans, if you've been in the NFL like myself and played in New Orleans, it is an awfully hard place to play. So this team hot 2-0 right now. No fans, ride momentum stronger than the New Orleans Saints fans. You could expect it to be a raucous environment down there in this NFC matchup.
Give me the Saints.
Yeah, give me the Saints as well. God, I love Derek Carr.
Okay,
I might get
not going that far.
I might get his eyeliner. If he goes out and wins this week, I'm going to get the same eyeliner that.
It really is tragic that he had to leave the Raiders, because the eyeliner was like
the look.
He looked like a pirate,
like Jack Sparrow.
He was exactly. Yeah. But alas, if you go to any place,
Jack Sparrow got new teeth, by the way. The actor, he got some new teeth.
Kinda.
He was looking really rough during his trial last year. They made fun of him. He went and got it fixed.
Go and get it. Yeah, got the money. All right, on to the next
Derek
one.
Carr has a new look too.
Chargers at Steelers. Steelers 1.5 point favorites here. This over/under is a spectacle. 35.5 points. I can't remember. I didn't do the research before. I can't remember an over/under that low. And that's to be expected, though, when you have the top 2 defenses in the NFL through 2 weeks. The Chargers allowing 6.5 points per game. The Steelers allowing 8 points per game. Brandon Staley ain't walking through that door for this Chargers team on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, expect a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of punts. Definitely, it's going to be like an Iowa game at the noon slot.
And with Justin Herbert a little dinged up,
and that thing
you can expect for the Steelers defense to load that box and challenge the challenge of Jim Harbaugh's offensive scheme, which is I'm going to run it right down your throat. There's nothing you can do about it.
Harbaugh yesterday said, I'm optimistic Herbert's going to play. Obviously, optimism, a great thing to have. Doesn't necessarily mean he will play because of that ankle injury. It didn't look great at the time. We shall see. From a coaching perspective, in my tail of the tape here, I didn't give it to anyone. These are two of my favorite coaches in the NFL.
Yep.
I would put them both in the top 5. I think when we did our coach rankings preseason and when we talked about that, I had them both in the top 5. So when that's the case, no, I'm not going either side. Quarterback, tick mark to the Chargers. Obviously, assuming their starter in Justin Herbert plays. If he doesn't, it's obviously going to be the Steelers.
Matlock is playing, though. Matlock.
Scott Matlock. He's playing on both sides. Receivers, give me the Steelers in this one just because George Pickens is quite easily the best receiver in this game. Backfield, I call it a toss-up from what I've seen from J.K. Dobbins through 2 weeks. I think both of those are evenly matched in that regard. Offensive line, though, this is the biggest probably mismatch in this game. I love this Chargers offensive line, what they've done through 2 weeks. I do not love the Steelers offensive line, what they've necessarily done through 2 weeks. Defensive line, give me the Steelers, even if the Chargers are much improved in that regard this year. Linebackers, I called it a wash. And then secondary, give me the Steelers yet again. So the Steelers defense, I think, is the better side here. I think the Chargers have benefited a touch from the offenses they've played. When you've played the Panthers offense, you've benefited from the offenses you've played. That's not a debate. But the Steelers, obviously, they played a rookie quarterback in their own right in Bo Nix this past week. So they've benefited from that as well. So I don't love the over-under just because if Herbert does play, I think we'll see a little bit more points.
30 total passes between both clubs, over-under.
That's one that's more. If Herbert doesn't play, I think the under could hit in that regard.
It could absolutely
hit. It could be like 1995-ish.
The story of the game is how you're going to get that guy TJ Watt taken care of.
Joe Alt, TJ Watt must see TV.
Because, I mean, when you look at the things Joe Alt's done in the first 2 weeks, you can't help but just set your record button up on your TV, whatever you use. I use
going to say mute
TV.
Button.
I'm going to have it over there, ready to watch. I can't wait to watch that because TJ Watt is the one guy that is like, he's inevitable. He's like a wave hitting the beach. You know it's coming. You don't know when it's coming, but it's coming before sundown. TJ Watt will arrive. Do they have the plan up front to take care of TJ Watt for the entirety of this football game?
I think Alt. I'm trying to think about stylistically. So stylistically, TJ Watt dominates higher cut tackles, and Alt at 6'8". Those guys that really struggle to get low enough. Now, like the guys like a Zach Tom or like the lighter, shorter guys that really can mirror.
Shorter inseam.
Those are the ones that kind of, I don't want to say have Watt's number, but he doesn't really have those games where he goes off. So with Alt being as tall as he is, even if he is a little bit more fleet of foot, it's going to be a difficult matchup.
A little bit of this. It's going to be a little bit of this action. Get it up off you.
Exactly. Get those hands up off of your shoulder pads. And I do like the Chargers, though, in this one. I do think that should Herbert play. Now, I'm not going to bet it again until we get word on Herbert just because you're totally out to lunch there.
I am proud of the way Justin Fields has led this football team.
There you go.
I'm impressed in the way that Justin Fields has dealt with all the stuff that we said about him over the course of the last few years. Obviously, Russell,
he's not lost games.
Russell goes down. Justin comes in. He's done enough to win football games. And to your point, I don't think he has any turnovers. And he's found a way to win. And he's only got one passing touchdown, I believe. But look, the things that you have to be ready for on your defense when Justin Fields has the football or when he's breaking the huddle as the quarterback, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. So credit to the Steelers for getting him out there and have him looking confident, not less than confident, and winning some football games. And this is going to be the story. It's going to be, can the Chargers stop the explosive plays from Justin Fields after the play breaks down? And can the Chargers have a plan for TJ Watt? That's going to be the question of the football game.
To quote the great Trent Dilfer, you cannot lose games in the NFL and still win. And Justin Fields hasn't lost games. All right, on to the Broncos, traveling to Tampa Bay to face the Bucs. Bucs, 6.5-point favorites in this one. Another sub 40-point over-under at 39.5. Injury to note here, Mike McGlinchey just went on IR, the Broncos' right tackle, with an MCL. 2 defensive linemen for the Broncos, Baron Browning, John Franklin Myers, not practicing so far this week. On the other side, though, Antoine Winfield's still not practicing, the safety. He's probably going to be out for this one. Rashad White, running back for the Bucs, may not play, but
that's big.
I'm not sure it is, given how
that's big in my opinion. With the production of the
Bucky
other guys
Irving
in that room right now, like you can get Rashad White the ball a lot in that offense.
I like Bucky Irving, though, so maybe I'm just a little bit higher on him, but tail of the tape, the only 2 tick marks going the Broncos' way. I give the head coach to Sean Payton. I give the backfield to Javonte Williams in that Broncos backfield. But after that, quarterback, receivers, O-line, D-line, linebackers, secondary, give me the Bucs in all of those regards. That's how you get to be 6.5-point favorites in the game. And yeah, I don't have a great take on this one. I do think the Broncos will really, really struggle to move the football. And if I had to lean one way, I'd lean the Bucs at 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, we're confident that Baker's going to go out there and put some points on the board.
Yes.
And we're also confident that they're going to dial up a hellacious amount of pressures against this Broncos unit. And what's one thing rookies don't do well with? Pressures, particularly disguised pressures, particularly both sides of the line of scrimmage. Todd's going to dial them up, and I think it's going to be a tough day at the office for Bo Nix. Also, you go down to Tampa Bay, you ain't a mile high anymore. It's not a dry, warm air like in Denver. You're going down to play in Tampa. It's going to be muggy. It's going to be hot. I mean, it's a long flight, and it's a lot to deal with in terms of Mother Nature.
All right, on to the Packers. Traveling to Tennessee to face the Titans. A real revenge game here. Malik Willis, just 3 weeks after being a Tennessee Titan, faces his old team. Potentially, though. My brother, who lives up in Green Bay, he said, dude, I think Love's playing this week. I don't think he has any inside information.
I saw him practicing.
He just said, I think Love's playing this week. So we'll see.
He's got that thing sleeved and braced up right now, and you know Matt LaFleur is going to test it out. But also, if he is the guy that we think he is, they don't have to play him. They don't have to play him.
True.
You know, you went and you stole a win last week against the Colts at home. You stole a win. Nobody thought you were going to win. Now you get a week with Malik Willis as your quarterback to be able to prepare your game plan, get that running game dialed in. I think it could be a lot of fun for the Green Bay Packers. And also, you can never predict with Will Levis, you know, whose team is he going to be playing for this week?
True, but Tennessee Titans, they are a top 10 run defense in the NFL right now, only allowing 92.5 yards per game. So a little different animal than that Colts front seven that they're going to have to be rushing the football against. That's why the Titans are 2.5-point favorites, but also why a 37.5-point over-under. These are just sad to look at this point.
This is historically low, right?
Yeah, and the Packers have a bunch of O-linemen on the injury report this week. We have Rasheed Walker, left tackle with a shoulder. We have Zach Tom at right tackle with a quad. Elkton Jenkins with the glute. Jordan Morgan, the backup right guard, rookie first rounder.
Give me the Titans.
And Josh Myers with an ankle. You just flipped your script there.
Give me the Titans.
The tail of the tape.
Need Zach Tom.
Head coach to Green Bay, quarterback to Tennessee, if Malik Willis should play. Receivers, backfield, O-line, D-line, though, all give me the Packers. Even if receivers was kind of tight, I debated with the Titans, but I just think the Packers have more at the tight end position and just have more depth in terms of your 3, 4, 5 wide receiver. Linebackers, secondary, give me the Titans in both of those regards, even if I thought the secondary was a little close. But yeah, the Packers are the top rushing offense in the NFL right now, 212 yards per game. They ran it well.
Strength versus strength.
On the Eagles, they ran it well.
It's hard. It's hard to have that kind of production 2 weeks in a row from a running back room.
It is.
I will say, and I'm not sure what history dictates or tells us, but when I remember there was a couple games where we went for 200 on the ground with Chicago, and the talk was always, let's get 150 next week. Let's get to, and we can never do it. It was always under 100. So that's the challenge for this team. Can they string 2 weeks together? And obviously with a group that's lacking up front in terms of health, you get both your tackles out of the game, you're going to be in some murky water offensively. So it leads
maybe don't rush Jordan Love back then.
Yeah, I mean, keep Jordan Love out. You got to throw Malik Willis back out there. The last thing you want to do if you're Matt LaFleur is put your guy back out there and he gets tweaked because you've got a less than unit up front and you got those hogs in the middle. It could be spelling disaster. But I think if you can find a way to break contain, if you can get outside the A and B gaps with your running game, you should be able to be all right. You got to stay away from those two interior guys for Tennessee.
Give me the Packers. All right, 4 p.m. slate. Panthers traveling to the Raiders. Raiders, 5.5-point favorites. 39.5 points is the over-under here. Andy Dalton starting at quarterback. That being said, every single tick mark goes the Raiders' way in this one, even if the tick mark for head coach, I call it the toss-up, given 2 first-year head coaches don't know enough at this point. Offensive line, I also call it
play in the league. I'm giving it to Antonio.
Oh, there you go. Just from a vibe standpoint, if vibes was a tick mark, vibes are going the Raiders' way.
100%.
Now, that being said, Andy Dalton in his start, week 3 last year against Seattle, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Red Rocket.
Now, it took him 63 dropbacks to get those. So
red rifle?
It's not nice. Red rifle.
Okay.
Red Rocket.
My dog has a red rocket.
Red Rocket's what's going to happen if the Red Rifle puts this one in the W column for the Carolina Panthers for most of Panthers Nation. But I just don't see it, man. I truly don't. And it's not Andy Dalton's fault. It's that the Raiders got just like the energy at home. Allegiant's going to be freaking rocking. Yeah, I like the Raiders 5.5. I like that bet.
Raiders have the juice. They find a way to win last week on the road in Baltimore. And it's, we talked about Max Crosby, his leadership. It's infectious the way he plays the football game. And Pete Prisco and I were talking yesterday. This guy, Max Crosby, does not leave the field. And when you've got a guy that doesn't leave the field, you have a beacon of light that the rest of your roster could look at and say, yeah, that guy hasn't left the field yet. And he's got 7 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss on Derrick Henry. And he went and tracked down Lamar Jackson in the backfield for a sack. I love the Raiders. I love Antonio Pierce. Obviously, I grew up in a silver and black household, and there was a lot of years where I wasn't able to cheer for the Raiders because I was elsewhere. I'm rooting for the Raiders now. This team's fun to watch. Gardner Minshew's been fun, a little funky at times, but they sold me, okay? I love the way this team plays with one another. Brock Bowers' production is off the charts. He's soon going to be so many people's favorite player in this league. Give me the Raiders at home at Allegiant.
All right, we're going to get to Dolphins Seahawks after a quick little break. Dolphins traveling to Seattle face the Seahawks. Obviously, the Tua Tagovailoa-less Dolphins. Now it's going to be Skylar Thompson's team.
It's a long way to fly for a porpoise.
No, there you go.
I think it is.
I thought you just
fish.
Just
Fish usually at the fish market in Seattle, but they're bringing dolphins for sale.
They better avoid. What is it? Who's sea market? What's the fish market?
You know which one it is. The big one. They throw fish at you.
Well, they're going to be throwing dolphins, especially this Dolphins offensive line in this one because they, got banged up last week with Teron Armstead going down in that one. Some other injuries to know: Kenny Walker, doubtful to play in this one with that oblique injury. Raheem Mostert still progressing from his chest injury. Doubt he plays in this one as well. Tail of the tape, I got the head coach going the Dolphins' way, quarterback going the Seahawks' way, obviously. Receivers, backfield, give me the Dolphins in both of those if Kenny Walker's not playing. Offensive line, I call it a toss-up. I don't think I've liked what I've seen from either. If Teron Armstead's out, though, I firmly would put it in the Seahawks camp. Defensive line, give me the Seahawks. Linebackers, give me the Dolphins. And then the secondary, Seahawks.
There's so much going on in this Miami locker room right now.
There is.
The leader in your room, the unquestioned leader, Tua Tagovailoa, is on IR. You've got Skylar Thompson in there. You just signed a quarterback. There's a lot of what are we going to do? People are probably saying, well, we could sign Tom Brady. We could sign Ryan Tannehill. We could sign all these guys. Well, what you got is what you got. Now you got to go play Seattle. Seattle, obviously, a really good defense. And, not only that, the scheme dictates that it's a tough defense to play against. Man, oh, man. Man, oh, man. I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. I just think Geno Smith is so dangerous on offense with those weapons he's got. JSN, huge week last week. I think they can pick up the slack that they left off with some of this injury report, guys.
I like the Seahawks as well in this one. All right, Lions traveling to Arizona to face the Cardinals in the desert.
This is interesting.
Lions don't are they desert animals? They could probably survive
a little bit. Are they savanna animals?
They're hot weather.
Yeah, they're savanna animals. People think they're in the jungle, but they're in the savanna.
Yeah, there you go. So Cardinals, though, 3-point dogs, a home dog, 51.5 points. People are expecting points. I can get on that train as well from what I see in the first couple weeks, but a lot of X's going the Lions' way. I mean, the only one the Cardinals get is quarterback, receivers, backfield, O-line, D-line, linebackers, and secondary. I'm giving to the Lions, head coach as well. But don't underestimate that quarterback tick mark with what we've seen from Kyler Murray through the first 2 weeks. He's been absolutely balling. I don't love either side in this one because it's 3 points, because it's in Arizona. I think it ends up kind of a 3-point game at the end. I think this one will come down to the wire because of what I've seen from this Cardinals offense and what I've seen from Jared Goff. But
I think this Lions team likes to play from ahead. It fits stylistically what they're trying to do offensively, and it opens things up for Jared Goff. And for the Cardinals, if you can start fast, if you can have a dynamite first 15, you can go out there and get these guys behind the 8 ball, get them into the game that you want to play for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's been so impressive. I think they can do so many things offensively because of his athletic ability. Give me the Cardinals in this one. It's a tough place to play. And yeah, it'll be nice weather, so it'll kind of simulate that dome environment for Jared Goff. But I think if they're playing from behind, it's going to be a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, I think I lean Lions. If we're just talking about who wins, I think I lean Lions. All right.
I like the Cardinals. I just think they're hot. They got confidence. It's Stella got her groove back. You don't let a guy with the talent like Kyler Murray get hot. He's hot right now. Somebody's got to stop him.
Someone does have to stop him. All right, Ravens traveling to the Cowboys. Cowboys, 1.5 point dogs.
Toughest pick of the week for me.
This one's not a tough pick.
Toughest pick of the week for me.
But 48.5 points is the over-under. CD not practicing, but according to NFL Network, sounds like nothing major. Probably just a vet day on Wednesday, although they said it was an ankle. Head coach, I had going Baltimore's way. Quarterback, I had a wash. Receivers, backfield, I gave to the Ravens in this one. O-line, D-line, though, pretty comfortably giving both to the Dallas Cowboys. Linebacker, give me the Ravens. Secondary, though, give me the Cowboys. So a real there's a lot of interesting matchups in this one. I do think, though, it's that O-line, D-line that's just like, I think this Cowboys team bounces back, and I think this line is an overreaction from what happened to the Saints. I think it's more that game was the Saints are good, not necessarily that the Cowboys are bad. And I like the Cowboys a lot in this one, truthfully. I do think, though, I will have 1 point. Lamar Jackson in a dome. It's tough to tackle that guy out in space in a dome. I think the NFL did us a disservice by putting him in the division that doesn't have a single dome.
Yep.
In the AFC North.
Slow fields.
If we could put that guy in like the AFC South or something, where he's getting all turf, or what's another division? NFC North has all. There's a couple.
Well, one.
Who has
two?
What's the most dome division in the NFL?
Probably the South.
NFC South.
Yeah.
NFC South. That's still 2. Is anyone with 3?
So there's a tie there.
Does anyone have 3 domes in a division?
I don't think so.
Okay. Still, a double dome division and a home dome for Lamar Jackson, I think
it
would have been
different.
talked about in a different even light, because him running on that turf is just tough to bring down.
Well, I can attest to that, and I can't say I've ever chased Lamar Jackson, but I've blocked some of the best athletes, or tried to block some of the best athletes on the planet. And when you play them at Soldier Field and you got that long grass, they're not as quick, they can't cut as well, their footing's not as good. You play them in a place like Houston or New Orleans or Dallas, my God, the get off is so much better. It's like they went from having tennis shoes to putting track spikes on. That's the difference between these guys in a dome and on a natural surface. So for me, I think it comes down to can the Cowboys turn this into the game that they want to turn it into? Can the offensive line, the defensive line dominate it? And for the Ravens, it is, we know we can't protect at the offensive line. What do we know we have? Superhuman at quarterback. We've got the ability to run the football. We've got the ability to get those guys on the offensive line, get their confidence back. How do you get the confidence back? Call some runs, call some double teams early, get those guys feeling like they are controlling the line of scrimmage. It's the only hope that the Ravens have. The reason I said it was the toughest pick, I can't see a season where Lamar Jackson goes out there and is 0-3. But the other side of the coin, I can't see the Cowboys getting their asses kicked like they did last week and rolling it out there and doing it again. Oh, give me the Cowboys at home. Although 10 seconds ago, I was thinking Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Give me the Cowboys at home and give me the under in this game.
Okay. All right. I like Cowboys at home as well. I have no take on the over-under. I do think we'll see points, though. And I think, like, if the Cowboys come out, I think if Lamar Jackson's behind, he'll put up points as well. So I have no take on the over-under. 49ers traveling to Los Angeles to face the Rams. On the road, they are a 7.5-point favorite. 44.5 points is the over-under.
That line is stinky.
Line is big. Road fave.
Line stinky.
But here's why. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, no offensive line for the Los Angeles Rams. So I have the Rams getting the quarterback tick mark. I think I have them getting the backfield tick mark, and then that's it. Even if the backfield tick mark and what I've seen Jordan Mason may not be that big of a tick mark. But the big tick marks, O-line, D-line. Rams are bad. Rams are bad. I think it's time we just admit the Rams with those injuries. And it's like, with those injuries, when you lost literally your first team offense,
Yep.
Your first team offense is gone. It's no longer there. When that's the case, you're a bad football team. Just flat out. And so this one is going to be another one of my locks of the week. This 49ers, they ran into Brian Flores last week, right? And a good defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL, in my opinion. The Rams are not that. I don't trust them to stop the run. I don't trust them to stop the pass. I don't trust them to stop a nose.
I don't trust them to respond once they do fail to stop the run or the pass either.
That too. So from all those perspectives, it's just really not too much to say here other than
only gripe I have is the head coach tick mark, because if you look at the head-to-head between these two guys, what does it look like?
McVay's got
by a long shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd give the head coach tick mark to the Rams.
Okay.
Just out of pity.
But then it is a Rams home game, but also it may be a 49ers home game, realistically.
We know how these people in LA are.
From the LA, and it's like, and there's 49ers kind of always take over that stadium, but also with the energy around the Rams right now, I think you have a lot of Rams fans maybe making business decisions themselves.
100%, giving their tickets to some Bay Area folks.
The highest bidders, shall we say. So, yeah, I like 49ers in this one big. Sunday Night Football.
That'll be a fun crowd. Good people watching there. Probably some fights.
They always have some. Who's the I know the Bengals, when the Steelers would come to town, there was always like a literal like fight to the death.
Yep.
Outside at the bank.
It's usually like Raiders, Niners.
Yeah.
Raiders, Chiefs. Raiders, Chiefs is a bloodbath every time. Okay.
All right. Chiefs, Falcons.
Yep.
Sunday Night Football. Chiefs traveling to Atlanta to face the Falcons. Falcons 3.5-point dogs at home. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because I gave every single tick mark to the Chiefs except for the backfield where Bijan Robinson lies. You're
not a Carson Steele guy or what?
I am a Carson. I like Carson Steele.
We love Bijan, though.
He ain't Bijan.
There's something poetic about Bijan just taking that outside handoff and just taking it around everybody. It looks like Madden when you play on rookie.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, the Bijan space head nod cut is a thing of beauty. I mean, he had Quinyon Mitchell sliding like he was heading home and a play at the plate on that last drive or on the third quarter there. Chiefs, though, big.
Yep.
I can't. I know they're road faves. Falcons kind of coming along. It's the Chiefs, man. You got to be on your P's and Q's to beat this Chiefs team. We saw a bad Mahomes game, and we saw a good Burrow game, and they still couldn't pull it off, right?
Yep.
Like, this is why everyone's saying they're going to do it again. They're just a damn good football team. And it's not like the Eagles where, I worry about this defensive line stopping the run. I worry about XYZ position that the Falcons ended up taking advantage of. It's really not a lot about the Chiefs to take advantage of. It's just, can you play perfect football? And, yeah, I think the Falcons could at home. I liked what I saw from Kirk that last drive. But let's face facts. He still doesn't have the arm to push it down the football field. It still was limited in that regard. And when that's the case, I just don't see the Falcons taking down this Chiefs team. I just don't.
Yeah, you have to play a perfect brand of football to beat this Chiefs team. But we know that sometimes they can kind of sleepwalk on some of these road games. The Chiefs do, out of division, out of conference. You don't know this team very well, so I think it could take some getting used to early on, but the floodgates probably will open offensively for the Chiefs as this thing goes down the stretch. Travis Kelce, what's his involvement look like? Last week broke the streak of games with 3 or more catches for Travis Kelce. I think it was like for 100 years he did it, and last week he didn't. So now you got people in Kansas City questioning, is it time for us to stop expecting so much from Travis Kelce? I don't quite think so. I think they're doing a good job of load management with him, but it's the defense. What is Atlanta trying to get done? They're going to run the football and they're going to run the play action if they can get to it. If Kirk is feeling up to it, one of the toughest guys in the National Football League to run this play action against is Chris Jones. He converts better versus run action than anybody I've ever played against. Okay, not only is bigger, taller, stronger than you, but he's so friggin' smart at the point of attack. And I know that they're going to try to put the paws on him, 4 hands on Chris Jones. He could split those. And if he doesn't split those, somebody else could get home. I know we got a couple guys on the injury report, but they got guys who can get home. I mean, obviously we got Derek Nottie, tricep, Mike Dana, who's been a good rusher for them in big situations. He's got a quad. So, are we going to see these guys? They were full participants, but how much are we going to see them? And how much value are we to get out of the rushers not named Chris Jones and George Karlaftis?
We shall see, but I'm going Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going Chiefs. 100% going the Chiefs. I'm not buying the Falcons yet.
Monday Night Football, Jags traveling to Buffalo to face the Bills, the early of the 2 Monday Night Football games. Bills, 4.5-point favorites here, 45.5-point over-under. Head coach, give me Sean McDermott in this one. Quarterback, give me Josh Allen in this one. Receivers, I didn't love either side in this. I went wash. Backfield, give me James Cook in this one. O-line, D-line, both heading the Bills' way. But then linebackers, secondary, pretty comfortably both going the Jags' way as well. So Jags have some areas where I think they match up well. I do think they can slow down this Bills' offense a little more than
because of their second.
Basically anyone the Bills have faced so far. So Cardinals defense, Dolphins defense. I think the Jags defense will be the best one the Bills have faced. So it's going to be a real good sort of litmus test of where are these receivers at for the Buffalo Bills? Where is Josh Allen at with them? Is he going to throw this game away? I think because of that, I don't like betting either side in this one. just because I could see it being tight. When it's 4.5 points, I could see it being like a 3-point game at the end very easily. That being said, this is the week for Jacksonville. If this offense doesn't get on track against this Bills defense,
Panic.
It's panic mode.
Panic button.
When you're 0-2 and you're playing the Bills, that's like really back up against the wall. And that's the other thing. It's like the Jags are going to pull out all the stops here because 0-3, season's over.
Yep.
Flat out, it's over. You're 0-3, season's over for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. So
I think the Bills have been disrespected just the right amount this offseason coming into the first few weeks of the season. And we saw the Bills dominate week 1. They were down a little bit, but they came back and won. They dominated week 2 against the Dolphins. I really love this group, and it starts up front with Aaron Kromer's offensive line. They have the ability to dictate the terms. They can run the football. And, when you can run the football at will and you can get these guys covered up at the first and second levels, it opens up so much. And you've got this guy by the name of Josh Allen, who is a real MVP-type talent. He can take over the game if you opt to allocate those resources in the box. Be careful because Joe Brady knows his guy Josh Allen likes to let it rip every once in a while. And the confidence you talked about, this Jacksonville team, they're on the cusp of being 0-3. And that right there is, that's season suicide right there. So for Trevor Lawrence, he's got to have a ball out, get back game. And if he doesn't win the game, he needs to, at the very least, go out there and go toe to toe with Josh Allen in this one. But I'm picking the Bills. It's too much. It's too much.
All right, Commanders at Bengals, your final Monday night game. And it may be an early night for people because the Bengals are 7.5-point favorites in this one, even if it's the late Monday night game. Not expecting a close one. Vegas isn't. 46.5 points is your over-under. The tick marks here. Head coach, call it a wash. You got 2 Super Bowl head coaches here going head-to-head. Not winners, but participants. Quarterback, give me the Bengals. Receivers, give me the Commanders. That's obviously assuming T. Higgins still being out. And at this point, I don't see him returning anytime soon. Backfield, another one I call the wash. Offensive line, give me the Bengals pretty comfortably in this one. Defensive line, though, give me the Commanders and what they have in that interior. But then linebacker, secondary, this is the one where Bengals are going to be tough to pass on this year. They flat out just are going to be. That is a good back 7 in their ability to cover opposing wide receivers. So I think you see, and when that's the case, I think Cliff goes into kind of a shell as a play caller. You're going to see a lot of screens, a lot of underneath stuff. They're going to try to run the football, and I think they may have some success in that regard. But I think the Bengals kind of roll them up. Even if I'm not going to bet 7.5 points, that's just a lot. I think the Bengals, after what I saw, progress week 1 to week 2 offensively, it's the point of the season where they can start actually playing football.
They'll turn it on.
Where they're ready to play some football.
They played some football last week against Kansas City, and it was a really down to the wire type game against them, and we see that all the time. But to your point, we're entering the end of the first quarter of the season here for the Bengals. This is where they start to ramp up, and I just think it's too much. Even without T. Higgins out there, I really like this group. You play in Cincinnati, it's a tough place to play. Rookie quarterback on the road, hostile environment. Give me the Bengals.
Give us both the Bengals. All right, on to our locks of the week for this week. I'll start with mine. I have the Bears-Colts under 43.5. When you have the defense the Bears do and the offense the Bears do, I don't see them going over 43.5 in a lot of games this year. And I think they fluster C.J. Stroud. I think they're able to. Or not C.J. Stroud.
Anthony Richardson.
Excuse me. I was thinking last week.
They flustered C.J. Stroud.
Because they did fluster C.J. Stroud. I bet the under in that one too. So 43.5. I like San Francisco -7 is actually what I got them at against the Rams. And then Alvin Kamara over 66.5 rushing yards. I don't love this Eagles defensive line and what they do against wide zone runs. Saints running that wide zone to perfection right now. Their best run defender for the Eagles on the interior, Jordan Davis, can't move laterally. Flat out, he can play in a phone booth, not laterally.
So what are we going to do? We're going to run around him.
So they're going to run around him, and I think they're going to run around him a lot. That's why I give me Alvin Kamara's over in that one.
For me, I got Chicago +1.5 this week. This is the week they get it back on track, back to 2-1. You got Buffalo -4.5 at Highmark Stadium. You got Josh Allen, an MVP-type player. Aaron Kromer's offensive line been dominant. I really like the way that looks. Got me feeling nicey. You got New Orleans -2.5. You're playing against the Cowboys or against the Eagles. I think they do run the ball. I love your Alvin Kamara over rushing yards. Give me the Alvin Kamara over receiving yards.
Oh,
too. He's getting, I'm just going to throw it on there. Sorry about that, Harry. 26.5 and 66.5 for Alvin Kamara. We got the AK special here.
We're really buying into the Saints team.
Got me feeling nicey.
Because the guy's feeling nicey. All right, and until next time, make sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Really helps us out. We'll be back Monday reviewing all the games. Until then, keep pushing.